Welcome, welcome. Nice to see some familiar faces here and some new faces. Let me just make sure the music's not too loud so you can hear me, but some of you might be familiar with the rhythm of the festival already, but as people are signing in, we invite you to, first of all, if you're able to turn in your videos, we love to see your smiling faces. This is a space for connection, and so we like to we connect by seeing each other. So no pressure. If you're some people are walking around, some people are signing on from the train, some people are signing on at 10 or 11 or 12 at night, because there's some really dedicated people that show up to these spaces. So no pressure to turn on your video, but if you're able to, we'd love to see your beautiful faces. And the second request is just to rename yourself with not just your name, but a network you represent. That's what we know, that many people represent multiple networks. This is the Networks Festival, so a space, a chance just to kind of like choose which one you want to represent in these 90 minutes together. And the third invitation, which is, I'm just going to keep repeating this as people come in for the next 2 minutes or so. So now those of you who are already here can get a head start, and then you can just start ignoring me. But in the chat, you'll see a link to our Mentimeter. Let me double check to make sure it's the right one. I think it should be. And there's a few questions in there that are about kind of where you're calling from, about what you're expecting. And so start just kind of filling them out to give us a sense of why you're here, what you're looking for, what you're interested in, what you're excited about. And we'll share some results in a minute, but I'll just, like I said, I'll just start repeating as people are signing in. And if you're already here, if you're already with us, then go ahead and jump to that link and start filling it out. So welcome to the others. My welcoming instructions for the festival are 3. One is to turn on video if you can, but no pressure if you can't. But we love to, this festival is about a lot of things, but one of which is connections, and connections happen through seeing each other's smiling faces. Second part of the instructions, there's, nice to see a few people that I've invited signing in. So I'm just going to wait for a second and just repeat. Okay, so those who are just signing in, we're asking for 3 things. Turn on videos if you can, so we can see smiling faces. Second is rename yourself with not just your name, but also a network you represent. And we like to see, we know many people represent many different networks, so choose whichever one you want to represent. And third question is just basically, not a question, but a request to go to the Mentimeter link that's in the chat and to take a chance just to fill in some of the questions. So Fesh, if you wouldn't mind just resharing as more people sign in the chat prompt. And what I'm going to do is just check out what we're saying, what people are saying in the Mentimeter, so we can get a sense of who's here, what you're interested in. And so let me just open that up for us and guide us through it. Those of you who are just signing on, Fash will be sharing a link in the chat where you can join us and follow through, but you get a chance to add your thoughts while seeing live what other people are saying. So no pressure, but we can't. So the Networks Festival, this is the pitch tent. We have a number of, by the way, you can also go to menti.com and enter this code. You can scan this QR code from your phone. We see about 12 of you are here, so that means about half of you are here. So we'd love to see the rest of you come in. This is the pitch tent. We have a number of festival spaces, and this space is about bringing funders and networks together to think about how we can strengthen the funding, how we fund them, how we support networks. And we spend a lot of time thinking about different, what we hear a lot from funders, some themes that are really coming through that a lot of funders are struggling with. So this is one of those sessions that's designed based on what we've been hearing. So here's a bit of where people are calling from. Interesting to see that a bit more northern today, but also That's reality. Power comes into a lot of these conversations. Nice to see that we have a mixture of people who are both working in philanthropy and coordinating and supporting networks in different ways. And what do we hear when this word collaborative evaluation comes to mind? Or when you hear it, what comes to mind? Tough challenge, that's for sure. What else do we have? Challenging, unmotivating. Interesting. I'm curious to unpack that a bit more. All the stakeholders, and we can understand all the stakeholders and evaluate from a collective contextual lens, participatory and adaptive approaches, understanding multiple stakeholders, how they're working together, instances where the evaluator, funder, and program are engaged, co-creation, inclusive evaluation practices. Those who are just signing on, there's a link that Fasha is sharing in the chat that can bring you into this this form that not this form, this Mentimeter that gives us where we're sharing a bit of our thoughts, who's here, what you're looking for. And the next question that we have on here is, what would you like to take away from our time together? So examples, tools, inspirations, ideas, connections, opportunities. That's what this is about. Collaborative approaches, like-minded people, what would help us make advances on learning, how to overcome some challenges associated with approaches. Keep filling this in. This will really help, I think, our speakers today to guide what they will be sharing. I am really excited to hand it over to them, but before I do, since there's a lot of people here who, some of you I've seen in some other festival events, for some of you it's the first time, I want to just take a moment to introduce you to what the festival is and why we're here. So I'll try and go as fast as I can because this is, I don't know what it is. I could do let's see, who can I ask for advice? I could do the slides or do the short video. Who's been here with me a few times that might be maybe Sheikah, or I don't know, Freya, if you've seen the video before, or Fash, you've seen the video before. But what do you think is more fun, the video or the slides? Anybody, any advice, or should I just choose? Going once, going twice? All right, I'll this is so tough. I'm going to do the video. All right, let me open it. I had the slides open, but then seeing the group, I think the video is a bit more fun. So this video, we just, it's a 2-minute video about what the festival is, what we're trying to achieve. And all I want to invite you to do is, while you're watching it, to take a moment to just share what resonates with you. So as you're watching this video, what's really resonating with you? What stands out? What do you really like about it? Okay. And here we go. Enjoy.
Change the world through a better party.
Addressing complex issues requires radically changing the way we work together.
We believe networks are the incredible invisible forces with the potential to reshape our world.
Thousands exist around the globe.
They drive deep change across education, jobs, equity,
Climate, agriculture, biodiversity,
migration, health, and so on.
There are so many groups, so many communities of practice, so many local ecosystems, so many alumni associations.
Networks are very powerful in creating a sense of belonging and also connection.
The cross-pollination of energy, of positivity and encouragement.
People can understand each other's interests, find their intersections, and work together on what matters to all of them.
But so many times, networks are underfunded.
Despite their norm-breaking approaches to social change, they are highly misunderstood.
For most, how to do this amazing work is a little bit of a mystery.
And we need to change that.
There's an incredible wealth of knowledge and lived experience on how networks can and do change our world.
That's why, across the month of May 2023, we will bring together thousands of network leaders,
Funders, conveners, companies, and governments to deepen our understanding of how to drive social change through networks.
To learn together, to share together.
Try out new practices, new ideas.
And we will play.
Some of the most impactful social change happens when people have fun together.
We need to deploy the knowledge and the wisdom, the collaborative power to create magic that will make our world a better place.
We'd love you to join us.
Will you join us?
See you there.
Oops, just pop in the chat. Thanks, Gurpreet, for starting us off. Just two or three, one or two things actually that resonate with you as you watch that video. And as you're popping them in, I'll read one or two out, but I really want to say, first of all, that video with smiles, I've probably watched it like 40 times now, but it makes me smile every time. And one of our video stars, Fash, is here and will guide us through, I think, a fun and playful experience. I'm really grateful to Fash and Gurpreet from Roddenberry for coming to share their experiences, and Barry and Donica as well. I think it's going to be a fun, exciting, very interesting space. Thanks for those of you who are sharing about fun and energy and collective wisdom and belonging and connection, mystery in the chat. And I'm going to hand it over to Fash now. And I'm going to sit back and listen. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Brandon, for kicking us off. In the video, the last thing that was said is, we hope to see you there. And here you are. So I just wanted to clap for yourself for being here. I hope that's not too much to ask. So if you can click at the reaction button, there's a place where you can clap. So let's all do that. You're clapping for yourself right now. Okay, I can even see different colors of claps. This is exciting. All right, and that also shows me that you are here. Even if I can't see you on the screen, I can see your hands clapping. So that's brilliant. So welcome again, everyone, to this session. We would try as much as possible to play, to learn, to share, and to grow together. Of course, I'm sure you know where you are, but just in case you feel that you're in a different Zoom, I just also want to pull this up for you to know that you're in the right place. Over the next 90 minutes, we're really going to be talking and sharing and thinking together around collaborative evaluation and learning in philanthropy for systemic change. So thank you so much. I was looking through the Mentimeter and some of the things that came through, and I saw the different things that we were saying about evaluations. And maybe to reiterate again, many of the things that you have all said, and to also ground all of us, why we are really here today. So I heard something around the fact that evaluation is challenging, but it's also something that is important. I heard people say, well, they hope that they can get some tools, they can get some inspiration, and of course, maybe build their practice as well as we all gather together today. Maybe to set us going today, I'm sure that when you think about evaluation and funders, for example, there is specific kind of metrics or outputs that funders want to see, especially when they're asking for evaluation. Sometimes it's very rigid, it's very linear. You just want to get a sense of what exactly is the program and what is happening through those programs. But then we're in a world right now where when you think about system change, there are a lot of factors, there are a lot of actors, and there are a lot of dynamics that actually happen when we talk about system change. So thinking about that linear system of evaluation might not be serving us really well, either as funders, either as change makers, either within the networks and things like that. So as we are all speaking together today, we want to look at it. What exactly is MEL, measurement, evaluation, and learning? How can that be a tool that can enable our networks to begin to move gradually towards systemic influence and change? So think about the different kind of evaluation that you have done in your life, either as a change maker, either as a network weaver, either as a funder, and ask yourself, these evaluations, have they really changed systems? Have they really helped us to move beyond just what we're supposed to see in a report? Is it really changing the dynamics of the things that we were hoping to change in our vision and in our mission as well? We are thinking of a unique way, or let's say fun way, to really dive into this conversation today. And on the right side of this screen, you will see a picture. At the top right of the triangle, you can see the pull of the future. At the left side, you can see the push of the present. And then at the far right, you can see the weight of the past. So the way we're going to go through this entire time together is that we want to think about how evaluation has been in the past. What has held us down when you think about evaluation and systemic change? We want to look at what is happening now because there are some conversations that is beginning to happen. People want to shift power. People want to co-evaluate rather than just, a top-down approach. So we want to look at what's happening in the present. What is pushing us towards those conversations today? And how are we reflecting on the things that used to hold us back in terms of our evaluation into the present time? But beyond that, we even want to think ahead. So let's think about 30 years down the line, 50 years down the line. How do you want evaluation to look like? And how can those evaluations really change the systems that we have in our societies, or the ones that is going to come up in the future that we can all explore together? So this is the direction of how we're going to explore. Stop sharing screen just for a moment. So I'm not going to do this alone. We have speakers that are all into evaluation and systems change, and also asking these questions as well within the organizations. And I just want to quickly mention the speakers. They're going to say a quick hello and hi. Don't worry, they will get the time to really dive into it and speak a lot. So let me start with Donika. Donika, can you please say hi to everyone on the call today?
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all and looking forward to the conversation together.
Superb, amazing. Thank you so much, Donika, for joining us today from Jacobs Foundation. The next speaker is Barry. Barry, please say hello to everyone on the call. You're muted, Barry. People want to hear your voice.
People say I sound better when I'm muted. Hi, I'm Barry. Pleased to be with you guys.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Barry, for joining us today. And then the next person is Guprit, who's my colleague at Roddenberry Foundation. Guprit.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
All right, great. So, well, I'm also a speaker, but at the same time a facilitator. So please bear with me as I move in between all of this today. So let's get right into it. If you can all grab a pen and a paper around you within the next 30 seconds, that will really be great because we all want to do something together as we get started. For the people that are not on video, I would really ask you to please come on video because there is something I'm going to be asking you to do with all of us. Okay, so please grab a pen and a paper. Okay, so I have my paper here, I have my pen here. In case you don't have a pen and a paper, please ask us. We brought excess papers. We can send to you wherever you are. All right, great. So I believe everyone has grabbed their pen and paper. What we want to do now is that I want to believe everyone in this room today have probably done evaluation in one way or the other. So go to your paper right now, and I want you to draw something or write something about the memory of evaluation that comes to mind. Just thinking about evaluation generally, okay? Let's not dive too deep for now. So just grab your pen. So if there's a painting that comes to your mind, if there's a picture that comes to your mind, just thinking about evaluation, the feeling that you get just thinking about evaluation. I know some people said it's challenging, it's tough. So draw something on paper. What comes to mind just thinking about evaluation? If you want to write it as a sentence, that's okay, but make sure you write it in a way that's legible enough because I'm going to be asking all of you to show me what you wrote on paper. So let me give us about 2 minutes. It could be one sentence, it could be a paragraph, it could be a drawing, could be anything, something that just reminds you of evaluation. Okay, we have 1 minute. What comes to mind when you think about the interaction with evaluation and learning over the past couple of years? All right, I want to believe we all have something on paper. So if you don't have anything on paper, can you raise your hand? At least for the people that can see. All right. Yeah, it could be a graph. It could be a table. That's totally fine. Okay, you try to avoid paper. Okay, today we're making you to bring all the papers that you all lost. All right, good. So let's give it a shot. Who would like to show us their drawing or their paper? Okay, I can see Gurpreet. Okay, okay. So Gurpreet is showing us the paper. So I'm just going to be spotting on as many people as possible. Okay, please pay attention as you're looking at their drawing. Please don't drop your paper. Look at the drawing of as many people as possible. Okay, I'm just going to be doing that to as many people as possible. Please look at their drawing. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing very nice stuff. Okay, this is really good. Wow, amazing. Amazing. Okay, I want to see more. Okay, I can see Francesca. Okay, interesting. All right, this is beautiful. Okay. Can you move a bit closer, Jagadish? Yes, that's lovely to see. Thank you so much. Okay, I can see Jonathan as well. All right, this is lovely. Pretty exciting, pretty exciting. This is really good. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Now, let's take some seconds. What are you seeing in all the things that people drew? Okay, I will allow one person to speak, but every other person just go to the chat and just type one sentence. What did you see? Who wants to speak? Just unmute yourself, okay? This is really a conversation. Okay, you can see questions, frustrations, ideas, okay? People, long parts, irritation, several other people with X in their eyes like mine, but also some beautiful interconnected spheres, negativity, lots of differences in approaches. This is beautiful. Caroline, do you want to say something? Negativity. Please come into your mind.
I guess it's just what I'm noticing is when it comes to evaluation, it's not something that we necessarily enjoy. So we have a tendency to go to our critical, analytical part of us. So all the things I saw were a lot of, I don't know, it's not human evaluation. It's not a human thing. It's a very rational, very logical. It lacks the kind of humanity that often our networks are all about, Anyway, that's me.
Great. Thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing that with us. Please continue to put on the chat. Of course, we want to see the reflections that you had. Just imagine, as people were thinking about evaluation, just imagine the things that came to people's mind. Frustration, it's beautiful, but at the same time, all of that. Now, let us go now to the past. We really now want to dive into the elements of where we want to look through today. As we all mentioned in terms of our feelings and the things that came to our mind, now think about measurement, evaluation, and learning, either in your past work or generally in the past, all the evaluations that you've done, all the kind of reports that you have written. I want you to think for some moments. How do you think all of those reports and all of those evaluations did not enable networks to move towards making influence? And as you're thinking about this question, because we are all going to go to the chat at the same time, for now, please do not put anything on the chat. Don't put anything on the chat for now, okay? But start writing. Start writing on the chat, because what we want to do is that all of us are going to put things on the chat at the same time. I'm going to count when we're going to do that. But in the moment, just go to the chat and start writing. But as you're writing, as you're thinking about the challenges of the past in terms of measurement, evaluation, and learning, who was the bottleneck, right? What was the bottleneck? And how was those bottlenecks happening? For now, we're basically thinking about all the kind of evaluation that you've done in your life, either as a chain maker, as a network weaver, as a network coordinator, as a funder, and you know, depending on different other areas that you've come from as well. So let's go to the chat. Don't put it yet, okay? But just start writing. So we want to reflect together. What was those things that were really holding us back in terms of the kind of evaluations that we have all done in the past? Who was the challenge? It can be yourself. So it's totally fine. Okay, this is a safe space. We will not judge you. If you were the bottlenecks at that time, it's totally fine. What was the bottleneck? Was it the program? Was it because it was a grant? Was it because you did not have ownership of the evaluation itself? And how was those bottlenecks happening? Okay, so I'm going to give us about 1 minute. I want to believe that everyone is typing on the chat, but I'm just going to count. So I'll count from 3 to 0 and we will all pop. What exactly is the weight of the past in terms of measurement, evaluation, and learning? Okay, are we ready? Okay, let me give another 30 seconds. I can see people that are still, you know, their hands are still going on their pieces. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Okay. I'll give us about 5 minutes because I want everyone to go to the chat right now. Okay, don't worry about my voice for now, including our speakers. Please go to the chat and I want you to read all the things that is coming up for people in terms of the weight of the past when it comes to evaluation. If there are more thoughts in terms of the weight of the past, please add it to the chat. We need to bring all of these challenges together, and our speakers are also going to be looking at them, and we're all going to be coming up with tools eventually before the end of this chat. So please keep adding. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. I'm just going to read a few. Some of the weight of the past. Manushi, not accounting for contribution, only attribution. Ritu, evaluation as a performance test. This is really exciting. Osula, mail not happened as not considered a priority for the network. This is really exciting. This is really exciting. And I hope we are all sinking into all the things that is being shared right now. And this is the kind of weight, you know, that is coming from different people that we experience in the past. Gradually, we now want to transition to what is happening in the moment. Looking at all of the weight of the past. And that's why we brought together speakers today. But you can see, even before we got to the speakers, our goal was to listen to all of you. And that's exactly what we're going to do throughout this session. So I'm going to be inviting the speakers right now because they are working within these circles of evaluation and rethinking how evaluation could be better. And I'm sure they're going to be looking at some of those weight of the past as they're also sharing about what is happening currently. So for them, they're going to be sharing what are the malpractices that they are seeing in their work, and what are the other kind of things that we should see? What are the kind of questions they're also exploring in the present, because they're also trying to challenge the kind of things that was happening from the past. So they're going to be looking at it from 3 levels or 3 angles. One from strategy, which and Dunika is going to be sharing a little bit of that. Barry is going to be sharing from the angle of emergence. And then Goprit is going to be sharing from the angle of innovative funding. So I want to turn it quickly to Dunika as she gets us on the go.
Great. So thanks so much, Fash. And I'll try to really be as brief as possible so that we can then hear from all of you on these questions. So as Fash said, what I would do is talk a little bit more about what the Jacobs Foundation has been doing over the last couple of years as part of our strategy level MEL process. And I'll say what I mean by that in a moment, but essentially it's something that we have started as part of his 10-year strategy of 2020 to 2030 to look at how do we actually put in place a learning culture, which is kind of in the middle here of this circle, sun-looking object, and really anchoring ourselves around that, the definition of what a learning culture is and how to become a better learning organization. And thinking about it from a perspective of learning how to learn of something that is actually a journey. It's not something that you know what the real destination is from the very beginning. So I'll speak to it from that perspective of how can we think of learning how to learn as a journey. So at the outset of this process, as I said, that was about 2 years ago when we started, we looked at what are the key underpinning principles that we want to put in place as we consider what MEL looks like to us, to our partners. And this is from a foundation, I don't know, some of you may be aware of what the Jacobs Foundation does, but we are a science funder. We come from that kind of very rational world. So it was quite a point of departure for us to begin to think of MEL as a more kind of all-encompassing process, not limited just to very linear processes, and many of you have mentioned in the chat. So this was just keeping in mind that this is a different type of approach for us, very a different one from what a science foundation typically does. So very briefly, we looked at kind of how to embrace learning as a process that is not just, that's not an end in itself, but something that we embrace as a journey. We talked a lot about what are the mental models that we need to put in place. Again, going back to the notion of we are a funder of research and science, of how do we rewire our own thinking about what learning actually looks like, and how do we put it into practice in our day-to-day work. So really encouraging ourselves and our partners to embrace learning practices that are woven into our day-to-day work. And then how do we actually invest in strategic learning as a process that brings in a learning partner. And we brought in an organization that actually looks across all of our work, including, of course, networks. Networks are part of a lot of what we do and we support. So they're supporting us across the entire strategy to put in place this learning system. Next slide, please. Thank you. At the core of that system, we started with something that we call our learning agenda. And this learning agenda is, think of it as more like basically a little bit like a compass we use internally to identify what are the key areas of our work that we want to learn about. And we broke those down into the why, the what, and the how. So why has to do with what are the big questions, fundamental questions about how systems change happens? What is the role of networks in that systemic change process? So there are lots more questions there, but essentially it goes at the heart of the theory of change of the foundation and what we're aiming to achieve in terms of systemic impact in the world. The what has to do with more of the evidence that we're creating. Again, we are a science funder, so there's no getting away from that, but we are very much focused on what are the thematic priority areas that we want to investigate further, and what are the key learning questions that sit within those priorities. And then finally, the how. And the how really captures our own understanding of the philanthropic role that we play. So as a private foundation, we're essentially accountable to ourselves. That is a little bit of the reality of foundations, right? We do have a professional board to which we're accountable, but we wanted to put in place structures that actually move beyond the legal requirements of accountability of a foundation and actually say, what are we accountable for that we can actually put into our MEL process that we can define as what is the role beyond the money? What actually are we adding value with? And define that as part of a MEL process is something that we can actually begin to learn about and measure to the extent that it can be measured. So this learning agenda includes that as well. Next slide, please. And I will finish with a couple of questions that we're still grappling with and the tensions that underlie those questions. And these will sound very familiar. I think many of you have mentioned in the chat that and expanded actually on many of these, but some that we're currently grappling with are how can we demonstrate the value of MEL early on in terms of what we're actually making decisions about and how we're collaborating with our partners to inform both programmatic design, what's effective, what's not effective, but also to invest in the long term, the slow payoff issue. So we're still grappling with that tension of how do we use MEL to inform decisions now for how to put in place a learning framework for the 10 years or 30 years of in the future. How do we institutionalize MEL, that tension between learning culture and accountability, and accountable to whom? We still have a board to report to ultimately. How do we ensure, and many of you have mentioned this in the chat too, that emergent nonlinear thinking and pathways captured, while there is still a need, especially we as a science funder, we still have to have some sense of, are we making progress? What are the early indicators that this progress, that we're on track to achieve what we want to achieve? And then finally, what's the optimal balance between investing in internal decision-making? That's what MEL is used for the most part in many foundations, versus field building and supporting the broader collaborative set of partnerships that we have. And final slide. One thing I wanted to leave you with is one concept we've been pondering is this question of intelligent failure. How do we move beyond accidental failure? And a failure, I'm exaggerating here, it's more to be provocative than anything else. But what I'm speaking about is that at least in philanthropy, we don't usually recognize when we've actually, or don't acknowledge that we have failed, and don't put in place processes to do it intelligently. And I wrote this little piece for Alliance magazine where I spoke about how we can actually put in place better processes, more inclusive MEL systems that are enabling us to learn about what works, what doesn't, together with partners in a way that's much more intelligent than accidental. And I will end it here and hand it over to Fash.
Thank you so much, Donika, for sharing all that with us. I want to give everyone in the room the opportunity to, to add maybe one sentence or thereabouts to the chat. As you were listening to Donika, what was coming to your mind, thinking about what they are reflecting on right now? And some of the questions that also came up as well. So if you can all go to the chat, maybe one sentence. Yeah, just one sentence, please. Okay. What is coming to your mind and what is the inspiration that you're getting from that? Emphasis on learning. Yes, great. What else is coming to people's mind as we're listening to Donika? Hey, your expansive thinking on learning is inspiring, and I can see other funders appreciating learning from your thinking of ways to embed learning in day-to-day work, learning to learn. I think I love that phrase so much. And thank you so much, Donika, again, for sharing with us. I'm going to turn it now over to Barry, who's also going to be giving us some inspiration in terms of the current thinking, in terms of MEL, and of course, how we can use that towards system change. As you listen to Barry as well, of course, I'm going to be asking you again at the end, when he has finished sharing, what are the thoughts that is coming to your mind as he shares? Barry, over to you.
Thanks very much, Fash. I'm going to riff off what Carolyn said earlier about evaluation being overly rational. And I think that in a sense, if we are in the business of transforming systems, then the last thing we should be is overly rational. It should be creative, it should be fun, it should be energizing, and particularly network development, which is something that I'm involved in through the Global Fund for Community Foundations, which is a small grassroots funder which funds across the world, but is mostly concerned to support communities in the global south, that is particularly Africa, Asia, Latin America, Eastern Europe. We really are in the process of experimenting, trying to shift systems. And that brings us into two kinds of evaluations. And I think that one is where you have a designed system where something is set up that's supposed to work. And that way you can do linear rational evaluations through advanced statistical techniques like difference regression analysis. But when you are actually trying to change things, you are in the business of emergence. And emergence is where learning really needs to happen. And I love the phrase that Donica used, intelligent mistakes, because in a sense, as we go through trial and error, we actually will make mistakes, but the critical thing to do is to learn from them. So we need an evaluation system that's very sensitive and tied in to the action. And we're trying to build a campaign called the Shift the Power campaign, which is generally of small community organizations banding together across the world to actually change a system of international development that has systematically failed over the past 75 years. And one of the reasons why it systematically failed is it's being tried to use a designed evaluation paradigm in an emerging system, so that actually we're trying to experiment, build change, build emancipation for people who are oppressed. And there is no formula for that, because people have to do it themselves. So that way, evaluation becomes a creative journey of transformation, of change, where the critical ingredients are imagination and agency. And imagination and agency cannot easily be put into a matrix and analyzed statistically. The fact that they can't be easily put into a matrix doesn't mean that they can't be put into a matrix. And that's one of the things we're trying to do. We launched 5 years ago a program called Measuring What Matters, where we went to 7 different countries in the world and consulted civil society activists. We held online Zoom calls, and nearly everyone everywhere said that the evaluation systems foisted on funders from the global north was completely inappropriate, not because that they weren't rational and viable from their point of view, but they made no kind of sense to what really mattered to the people in communities. So that the real issue becomes what really matters to people. And we've been experimenting, and I think we've made some probably stupid mistakes, but we've certainly made some intelligent ones. But we're groping towards a model which has 3 key dimensions. So we have got 20 indicators that we ask everybody that receives our funding to use. And we say to them, if they don't apply to you, that's fine. But we use the data, so we figure out what are the things that are really important to people. So they are things like reduction of poverty, the promotion of gender equity, the reduction of racism, things that are actually quite important in terms of transformation. And we use those and we analyze them statistically to give profiles. And we find that people across the world are, broadly speaking, very much interested in the kinds of social justice issues that we are. And they are intersectional matters of that most of you on this call will really understand. The second dimension that we look at is we ask people to tell the 3 stories of change that they feel that they have managed to accomplish. We don't say what those stories should be, but then when we read those stories, we use narrative building software to actually build a story that is common to them. And that way, we are actually building a movement of people respecting their differences, because people are not the same, but giving them a space where they feel that they can really connect with each other, where they can discuss these things. And that's the third thing we do, is bring people together with the dialogue, where we actually talk across and between different cultures to say, what is the sense that's coming out of this kind of work that you've been doing? And the final piece that we do is we look at the interrelationships, and we use the tools of, I've got 1 minute left, of network analysis, social network analysis, on 12 criteria to see where power is in the network and how we're actually building it between people, so that we can act to advocate for the kinds of sensitive systems that we want to see in the world that will actually support transformation rather than simply the transaction that has dominated international development for the past 75 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barry. I mean, it felt like you packed, several years of experience into just 5 minutes. That was really spot on. I want to go back to the audience again. What is coming to your mind? I really loved, so many things that Barry mentioned in terms of measuring what matters, the stories. I mean, I'm just going to turn it over to everyone, okay? Please, let's go to the chat now for the next 1 minute. What is coming to your mind? What is your reflections? What is something exciting that is coming to you? Because this is the present now. We're asking ourselves, what is pulling us towards this present? So let's go ahead on the chat and share. Hey, emphasis on shifting power. Yes, we need a discussion on what is local, tracing relationships across the range of priorities, stories of impact, and more. Great. Let's have a few more. Balancing of technology and human relations is very important. Love your approach, Barry. I found that it is about learning to understand what is being done together as opposed to what is being done to others. Okay, keep it coming, keep it coming. I want to turn it over now to Gurpreet, who's going to be sharing from the angle of what are the kind of innovation that is happening within the philanthropic industry. Gurpreet.
Thanks, Vash. And I'll be building on what Barry mentioned as the systematic failure over the last 75 years. And to do that, I'll be speaking to what Vash and I spend most of our time on at the Run Brave Foundation, which is the +1 Global Fund. And we're a relatively young funding program, and a lot still remains to be designed. So we'll be sharing some inquiries that are top of mind for us rather than any firm answers or lessons, and would love to invite any input or suggestions or inspirations you all may have to guide us towards answering some of the questions we'll be sharing with you today. So first, we quickly want to share some brief context on what the +1 Global Fund is, and then we'll get into those, what those inquiries are. So the impulse behind launching the fund was this recognition, like Barry mentioned, that social change and development leaders in the global south, who are closest to their communities and the problems they face, are largely being overlooked by global north funders and other power holders. Or in other words, most of the funding that is flowing is typically going to global north-led initiatives, and the funds that do end up in the hands of local leaders in the global south typically are restricted to specific projects or have some, typically onerous reporting requirements attached to them, and often due to misconceived risks of what it takes to fund and support local initiatives. So the challenge that the Run Brave Foundation took on was threefold. So how can we best support high potential locally led initiatives that are currently being overlooked and in ways that are rooted in trust? Two, to what end, meaning which regions, which issues, which types of initiatives? And then three, how do we discover such initiatives when we, for example, are a team of 6 or 7, our peer funders are in their own echo chambers, and the types of initiatives we hope to support may not be going to the conferences or events we're going to, or may not even have websites. So to get to some of these answers, to the these questions, let's just start quickly with the +1 theory of change at a high level. So we take inspiration from the System Innovation Initiative, which some of you may be familiar with. And that initiative synthesized a chunk of academic work on social change and transformation. And this set of work essentially argues that change often happens when niche alternatives to entrenched systems push for change, while broader trends in demographics or values or economic conditions or political climates create openings for the change to happen. And so drawing from this, we position +1 as being in service of these niche locally led initiatives who are pushing towards systemic change in a range of ways, but are being overlooked by Western global North funders to the detriment of our sector as a whole. And to help catalyze the maturation and influence of these initiatives, we're arguing that a few different types of support are needed. Obviously, flexible funding, but also organization development and capacity building support, also opportunities to connect with each other, and we'll get into that very soon, and then also promotion to funders and other power holders within our network here in the West. And the first step, though, is discovering such initiatives. And we'll quickly get into how +1 works in a nutshell. Next slide, please. So we first start with a very broad boundary, such as food security in sub-Saharan Africa. And since the types of initiatives we're hoping to support targeting, for example, food security, may not have websites, they may not be going to the events we're going to, they may not already be in the portfolios of our peer funders. We use a nomination process to find and reach such initiatives. And we do so by first going to institutions who are well networked globally. And starting out in the +1 journey, we were going to organizations like Ashoka and Acumen. And then more recently, we've been going to network partners that are more topically and regionally focused, like the Agroecology Fund. And we go to them, and rather than asking them for their nominations, we instead ask for their recommendations to proximate nominators. And these are leaders, for example, of established social enterprises or NGOs, university professors, well-placed government staff, folks who are likely well connected to the types of locally led initiatives we hope to support. And then as an incentive, we promise an honorarium should one of their nominated organizations be selected for support. Then we go to those nominated organizations, the nominees, and we ask them to submit a very brief application that is designed to take less than an hour to complete. And we encourage them to copy and paste from other sources, attach links, and so on. And then we supplement that with whatever we can find online, even from Facebook pages and YouTube videos. Again, acknowledging that often funding applications and requirements can be onerous, we're hoping to remove some of that burden from the get-go. We then bring these applications to expert evaluators who, like nominators, are experts in the region and issue of focus. And with their insights, we select who we call awardees, organizations we end up supporting. And we support them through a flexible grant, capacity building support, connections to the +1 network, and promotion. And then awardees are then invited to nominate their peers and partners for support in the next round of +1, which is where +1 gets its name. So to bring it back to the focus of our session and the Networks Festival, one key contribution we hope to make is to connect awardees together as a vibrant network that provides real value to both individual awardee organizations, but also the network as a whole. And we're just now starting to figure out how to monitor, evaluate, and learn from the network so that we can improve and adapt over time. So we have some top of mind questions that Vash and I are currently grappling with. So this session is very timely for us. So these include, to what extent are connections facilitated by +1 adding real value to each awardee? But then beyond each awardee, to what extent are connections facilitated by +1 enabling exchange, coordination, and or collaboration between awardees? So again, paying attention to the individual and the whole. And to answer these questions, how might we gather data and insights in the least burdensome ways? And then what can be gleaned from existing sources and connection moments, even the sort of the exhaust that organizations and individuals are leaving through the conversations they're having, through the connections that they're building. And then now that we're, for example, starting to gather data and insights, how might we invite network members as reflections on incoming data and insights? Or in other words, how can collective sense-making and brainstorming be best facilitated in partnership with the awardee organizations we hope to be in service of? And then that collective sense-making and brainstorming very obviously is going to unearth possible improvements and adaptations we can make as a funding program, but also as a network. But then we run into a tension. So how is decision-making and agenda setting shared among those in the +1 network and the +1 funders who set the agenda from the get-go? Who gets to decide which improvements to take on and which adaptations to implement? And then throughout this say learning journey, how can opportunities for joint action towards systemic change be discovered early? And then more logistically, as those opportunities are being discovered, how can we resource them given their emergent nature? For example, how can we build in budget ahead of time, anticipating that such opportunities will be discovered and that we are ready to support them versus after the fact? And then throughout all of this, there are some evaluative judgment calls being made. And so how can those judgment calls be equitably conducted? And the key question there is who gets to decide and how? Is it the funders? Is it some combination of those in the network? So essentially, who is at the decision-making table? And then throughout, overarching all of this and sort of our guiding question is how can MEL be in service of and more importantly, be driven by the +1 network as awardees attempt to influence the entrenched systems that they individually are focused on, but over time may collectively converge around. So with that, I'll turn it back to Fash. Fash, please add or edit anything that I said about +1 from your perspective as a +1 network lead.
Thank you so much, Gurpreet, for sharing all of this. And yes, I know Gurpreet ran through this so quickly. And because of that, I'm also going to give us about 2 minutes to 3 minutes. Yeah, these are questions that we're grappling with at the moment. And yes, every day we're preferring answers to them. And we're also turning these as well to the awardees, to answer some of these questions with us as we're having conversations with them. So as you were listening to Gurpreet, what is coming to your mind? And maybe you have some answers to what you have on the screen right now. I'll just give everyone about 1 minute to put that on the chat. Any of the questions at all, any insight that is coming to your mind as you were listening to, Gurpreet sharing the kind of model on how we are thinking about the +1 model itself and some of the things that you heard, some of the inspiration that is coming to your mind, please feel free to go to the chat for the next 2 minutes as we all reflect on that. Okay, I'm just going to read in a few things that is coming right now. Having the participants be central to sense making, bringing innovators together to learn and act collaboratively, need to take time to build relationships among participants early on. Absolutely spot on. I appreciate how you're considering how to include the network in use decisions. Yes, totally. Let's get a few more. Right, so more questions. Oh yeah, a kind of a response. How might we ensure that we remain inclusive, truly inclusive? Using influencers to recommend awardees may be biased by privilege. Interesting view. Thinking about how we measure the impact of new relationships and exchange in the long term. I think this is a very interesting one. I'm sure folks within the network clusters would definitely love the angle around measuring relationships. It's always something that we're constantly thinking about beyond measuring the programs and all of that, because relationship is something that's sometimes very tricky for you to measure. And sometimes you don't just want to measure things that does not matter, really. I appreciate how each of the panelists is sharing questions they are asking themselves in their journey. Totally. It means that all the speakers, yes, they are doing brilliant work already, but at the same time, we're all coming into this today to learn, to share with all of you as well. So as more thoughts come to your mind, please feel free to put it on the chat. We would definitely love to see the things that is coming to mind and as we are trying to answer all of these questions as well. We want to kind of change gears a little bit because now we have reflected on what has been the weight from the past, okay? Our speakers have also shared a couple of things with us as well in terms of the things that they're reflecting on. And I love how all of us has really been sharing on the chat in terms of how we're also reflecting with them as well. But before we move into the future, because now it's like we want to move into something that is not happening at the moment. If we can all come on video, that would be great. Let's do something a little bit out of the past and out of the present. Okay, are we ready? Okay, so we're moving to the future of what measurements could be. So for me, I'm going to be thinking ahead as far as 50 years down the line, okay? So whatever way you want to think about it, for you, if it's going to be 5 years, for you, if it's going to be 100 years. So what we're going to do is this. I want you to show, how many years down the line in terms of male that you're going to be thinking, okay? And we're going to show that on video. So I want you to watch every other person as you also watch yourself. So if you fly off your screen, it means you're probably thinking 200 years down the line, okay? But if you fly a little bit, it means you're thinking 5 years down the line, okay? Are we ready? So the goal is to fly as far as you want to think into the future in terms of male. Okay, so I'm going to count from 3 to 0, and I want to see how far people are going to fly. 3, 2, 0, 0. Okay, I can see June flying a little bit. Maybe that's 2 years down the line, I guess. And Donica, maybe just 7 years down the line. And I can see Freya as well. I think maybe 1 year down the line. All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone. So what we're going to do is that we're going to breakout rooms. And what is going to happen in our breakout room is that we're going to be dividing ourselves to 4 different breakout rooms, okay? There's a room for change makers. So change makers are people that you feel more that you want to think about how change makers are thinking about Mel, okay? It doesn't mean that you're on the ground or anything like that. We're also going to have a group for network weavers or people that are more into networks that want to think about Mel. We're going to have another group for people that are really into measurement and evaluation. Okay, so maybe you're a specialist in M&E, or you've really been thinking about M&E and you really want to have conversations in that group. And then the last group, we're going to have funders. It does not mean that you're a funder, but of course, if you're a funder as well, we would definitely love you to be in that room. So what is going to happen in that room? And you will have about 10 minutes in that room. Our reflection in our room is as simple as this. We want to think about Mel and how Mel is really going to affect system change or, really bring a lot of difference into our lives and the kind of programs that we work on. And we want you to come back from those rooms writing down what you hope that Mel can be in the future. And please, think about it in the most radical way, okay? There is no right or wrong answer. And when you get into your room, please ask one person to write down the thoughts that is coming to mind. So immediately you get into your room, just shout out all the ideas, okay? Don't wait. You have 10 minutes, shout out the ideas and let somebody be grabbing down all the ideas that is coming to your mind. Again, you can go to the room of change makers, you can go to the room of network weavers, you can go to the room of M&E, or you can go to the room of funders, and right there, you get an opportunity to just come up with ideas of how you want Mel to be in the future and how it's going to shape our world. So right now, the rooms are open. All you need to do is to go into breakouts. So you can click breakouts on your screen, and you can get into the rooms right now. The time is running so fast. We'll see you in a bit. Please ensure that there is somebody capturing all these notes when you are there. Please. That will be very important. Okay, see you guys in about 9 minutes. All right, is everyone back? I can see some smiles. If it was good, please give me some sign. Give me some sign. Did it go so well? If it did not go so well, just do like this. If it went well. Okay, it feels like it went well. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take about 2 minutes from each of the groups. You just want to describe to us what is going to happen in the future from the groups that you came from, okay? So I'm going to start from the funders. No, I will not start from the funders, okay? I will start with the M&E folks. All right, so who's in that group? Who wants to share back? What were the ideas that you came up with? Barry, you're muted. Yes, your voice is lovely when you're muted, but hey, we want to hear you. You're muted.
Somebody leaps in here and mutes me without my knowing. I think anyway. We had a fabulous conversation. We just didn't have a long enough. It was really, really good. And we got deep into issues of complexity and culture and being able to really find our way through dancing with systems and data. And, I just feel really enthused by the people in my group. How do we tell stories with common frameworks? How do we deal with interpreting cultures how do we actually deal with different cultures when the dominant narrative comes from the West? How can we actually seamlessly update maps, network maps? How do we interpret network maps? How do we feedback stuff? Really powerful stuff that if we could begin to crack that, I'd love to meet everybody in my group for an hour and a half's real conversation. We need more before we can make but all the intelligence was in our group.
Amazing. All the intelligence was in the M&E folks group. I'm going to prove you wrong because all the other groups are also going to show their intelligence. Okay, let's go to Change Makers group. Show us the intelligence. What happened?
Well, that sounds amazing, Barry. But you've had sounds like you had a really fantastic conversation. We also had a really good conversation. There were only a couple of us there. We had some trouble people joining, so we were a little short on time. But we did have a really useful conversation on starting with some of us sharing, how Mel has actually been a nightmare for us in the past. So it was more of a negative lens to it as a starting point, and then quickly moving into reflections on kind of what the future holds and ideas for that. And we landed on how can we work collectively on changing perceptions, especially for us funders, not to preempt what may have happened in the funder group, but for funders, especially how to work with change makers in an eye-to-eye fashion, how to build trust, and actually starting to get into the question of why is there no trust? Because a lot of times we do MEL because or at least the accountability part of MEL, because we don't think that there's enough trust for things to happen on both ends. So what underlies that, and digging deeper into the trust issue. And if we were to understand that more effectively, then maybe there is a more productive, more positive way of learning together that is not a nightmare. And then we got into a little bit of the discussion on how to bring more diverse perspectives into it, which again, I think builds on that notion of togetherness and trust. So end here. I know we're running out of time. So over to you, Fash.
Thank you so much, Donika, for sharing that. I incorporate you in the funders group. Please give us the intelligence that popped up from there.
Yeah, and that can maybe building on your question, how to work with changemakers IOI. So we, as a group, came up with a dream of enabling the partners we're supporting to measure their own change and to learn from them with humility, and to extend that dream even further, and to enable communities that they're working with in turn to learn and to help us learn from them. So in essence, shifting the power in modern evaluation learning more and more towards the communities being served. And that takes change at all levels, even at the board level. There was a quote, and Rito, I may be getting this wrong, please correct me, but trust can allow ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And there's this other push for a sort of need for collective unlearning. So unlearning within the funder, within partners, even within communities, to recognize the wisdom that they actually have, and not just Western folks with PhDs. Then there was a push towards seeing MEO as a strategy for systems change in and of itself. So that if we're very serious about changing systems, we have to acknowledge they're unpredictable, it takes careful listening, and so MEL can be a useful tool to enable that. And then lastly, I think there was a recognition that just one funder alone acting differently will not bring the change we need as a sector, and funders as a whole need to change, and what would that look like? And I think that's, and we ran out of time.
All right, we wish that we could have given you 10 hours to debrief about this, or maybe even do this physically. For the next 3 minutes, as you were hearing all of these things, I'm sure you all came with bags of tools and resources for everyone in the room, and we will not let you go without bringing all of those tools. So just reflecting about from the change makers, from M&E folks, from funders, what are some of the tools that is on your mind right now? You want to dig them out and put it on the chat so that everyone that has come here today can go back home. Okay, no, go back to the office. Yes, you can be home as well with tools and resources that you've actually learned here. So I'm going to give everyone about 2 minutes. What are those tools that you know can really transform the work of everyone that has showed up today as a gift that we're all giving to all of us? So I'm just going to give about 2 minutes for us to put all of that at the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing all of these things. I'm sure you're wondering, oh my goodness, these are so many tools. I want to copy and paste. Don't worry about that. Down at the base of your Zoom, there are 3 dots on the chat. If you click on that, you can actually save the chat. just like that. It takes seconds to have all the resources that have been shared on the screen somewhere on your PC, and you have access to all of that beyond today. So I just want to thank all of you for joining us today. It's been an amazing pleasure to facilitate this and to hear from different perspectives of how we're thinking about MEL. This is the kind of room that we need to have to really change the systems that we have in the world, in our programs, in our work, and of course, in the kind of changes that we want to see in the future. Thank you so much to all our speakers. Donika, thank you, Barry, thank you, Gurpreet as well. And thank you to everyone in the room for really having this great conversation with us. Before we close, we have to give it back to our host, Fito Network, to really close us out. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Fash. Before you sign off, there's a few different ways that we close. Sometimes we close dancing, sometimes we close connecting, but I want to try something slightly different with this group. Because I've been very inspired by here, but I've also been hearing a lot of like, where can we go? And so I want to try and a quick exercise that will ground us. I mean, actually, I might need to choose different music. Maybe we can keep this. Before we do, I want to say also that we have a mini ritual. So if you don't sign off yet, if you can stay with us for the next 4 minutes, we have a mini ritual before we close. In which we kind of share a note of gratitude with each other. But I want to invite everybody to, this might be a little bit strange, something we're not used to, but I find it really powerful to just unmute. So everybody unmute, unless you have really, really terrible background noise, but I haven't heard that's the case for anyone. Video doesn't need to be on. If you feel uncomfortable, then you can turn off video, but unmute, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is to close your eyes. So that's why we unmute, so you don't need to check your mute button. And it's an exercise I've done in many different circumstances, both on Zoom and in person, and I always find it really, really useful for thinking about, well, reflecting on a lot of different things. And what I just want to ask us is to take 30 seconds to think about how can we move this conversation forward, because we host a lot of these conversations and they're really nice for, I think, touching the surface, but it's not necessarily shifting the funding landscape. And this is something that we're really trying to do with the Fito Network. And the reason I'm asking you to close your eyes is to take a moment just to think to yourself, not being distracted by the screens or whatever's around you. And when you have something to say, just say it out loud. And we're going to try and go around until most people have, or everybody hopefully has said something. Don't worry about interrupting each other. Don't worry about if there's a little bit of silence. The closing the eyes also makes the silence a little bit less awkward. Again, I'm going to change the music just to give us a bit of a better background mood. And just in the next few seconds, say out loud, especially if you have to hop off, before you hop off, say something out loud about how we can take this forward to really deepen these conversations and shift the field.
I think we could do something to make our good intentions visible so that we can be held accountable to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it would be including our community and program participants, even in brainstorming about MEL for our organization, rather than just my team.
Perhaps also sharing more intelligent failures.
Sharing more, show and tell across the whole network with others as well.
The ideas coming. Any other ideas? Just throw out anything that comes to mind. I'm gonna leave about
Barry, you're on mute. Barry, you're on mute.
I think building a future-orientated document that we co-create, both the headings and the contents, and actually not worrying too much about getting things wrong. You know, let's pretend we're 2 years old and we're playing with paints and pastels and crayons on paper and just enjoy it.
I'd love to have small groups meeting to get into the details. There's so many times today I said, well, tell me exactly how you did that. I'm really interested. And so if we can figure out spaces and places where we can get together and do much more detailed sharing of what we've been doing, also spaces where we could really dig into those questions that so many of the presenters brought up that were really great.
Collective sharing and sense making needs to be better funded.
Yeah.
Yeah, questioning ourselves, why we are doing, dig deeper and deeper and deeper, what we are doing, how we are doing, how we are connecting.
I'm aware of time. We could keep going with this, but just because some people have to hop off, what I want to invite everybody to do now is just before you go, to just unmute and say a word of thanks to anybody. It doesn't have to be to the speakers or the facilitators, a word of thanks to somebody in particular. That's how we like to end our festival sessions and our spaces. So go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa, for your smile.
Thanks, Barry, for the great idea.
Thank you all for giving me
And thanks, Pito Network. I just love the stuff that Pito's putting together. And I hope funders realize what an asset Pito is. Put a plug in and support Pito. It's great.
Thanks, Brendan, for the note taking.
Thanks, Fash, for the great facilitation.
Thank you, Donika, listening my words.
Thanks for a really convivial atmosphere that was superbly facilitated, Fash. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to the organizers and for everyone for a rich conversation today.
And thanks to all of you. And we will see all of you hopefully soon at another space. But for now, have a wonderful rest of your day. Cheers.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.